Luck is often defined by success or failure based on chance rather than your direct actions. At least that's what the dictionary describes it as, but what does it know? Instead, I prefer to think of luck as not the essence of chance, but the essence of change. And I think this definition can be found most within video games. See, when you decide to roll the dice, or spin on roulette, or do whatever this is, you're essentially setting yourself up for failure. But in video games, luck isn't all about winning or losing, as unlike real life when you lose all your money based on luck, you can just get it back again pretty easily with enough time and grinding. So how do video games introduce luck when there's no real consequences or stakes at hand? This is where RNG comes in, random number generator, an algorithm that produces random or pseudo-random values that are completely out of your hands. And one of the first examples we've seen of RNG in a video game takes us back all the way to 1973 in a video game called Hunt the Wumpus. I know, the gameplay couldn't be more thrilling, but to be fair to this weird and horribly sounding game, it used random number generation to its advantage. And if you're not quite sure what you're looking at here, take a look at this. This might be a bit more familiar, Pokémon Mystery Dungeon, which is a roguelike dungeon crawler, which I would argue, like its predecessor Hunt the Wumpus, is the goldmine of RNG. In both of these games, you are placed in different dungeons with different loot, different staircases leading to different rooms that eventually take you to a final boss, and all of that, aside from the final boss, is completely randomized. Like I said, luck isn't all about the final outcome because you can pretty much always get there eventually with grinding. That final boss at the end of the dungeon is always there, and you will eventually and inevitably find it and beat it. Instead, luck introduces change along that journey and changes your experience as a whole. Again, it's not always about that final prize. And yeah, roguelike dungeon crawlers are definitely the extreme example here, but I would argue even adding the tiniest luck to your video games completely changes the experience for the player. Most of you know that traditionally video games aren't like Hunt the Wumpus or Pokémon Mystery Dungeon. They have one goal, but more distinctively one path that leads you to that goal. Take Super Mario Bros. From 1975 for example. There is one boss, as we all know, but more importantly just one path to get you there. And I'm not going to count warp pipes because in my opinion they completely defeat the purpose of playing a video game in the first place. So yeah, as far as options, you really don't have many. It was only 8 years later for Mario when Super Mario Bros. 2 was released, which eventually and finally had more RNG to go with it, even if it was as literal as just adding a slot machine at the end of each level. But either way, more RNG means more chance to change the player's outcome completely. One small change in luck can have a huge butterfly effect in the end. And this is why luck is so important in gaming. There really isn't any other medium that can do this. Take a book, a song, or a TV show, movie, whatever, and yes, people might interpret the same media in different ways, but one thing can't be argued with. All of those people experience the exact same thing, but the same can't really be said for video games. Every single experience by every different person is different, at least when there's luck involved. Your journey is its own, and the driving force that gives you different paths to be on is luck. And sure, you can quite literally just add more paths to your game. It's the reason why Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey are so popular. Despite them going against their normal franchise's formula, it seems like you have an endless amount of paths in those games. But even in these games, luck is equally essential for a unique playing experience. And I believe one of the best examples of luck determining your path, even though that may not be that obvious to the player, at least while you're playing this game for the first time, is in Yokai Watch. Yokai Watch is a creature collecting game quite similar to Pokémon, with a lot of differences, but I would argue the main one being that the way you collect yokai, unlike Pokémon, is not really skill-based, but luck-based. When you give a yokai its favorite food and you meet all the other necessary requirements to obtain that yokai, you might just still not get it, because the odds of getting it, even if you do everything right, is so low. Which kind of does sound lame immediately, but in my opinion it makes the game so much more interesting thing and your experience unique. Because you may not know it at the time, but when that specific yokai joined your team, you just got very lucky. And you not just got lucky, but a new path opened, and your experience differs from the friend you play with. I know this because I play with my friend, and by the end of the game, we were so surprised at how different our teams were, but kind of glad they were, because unlike Pokemon and Gen 4, when you have the same team over and over again, it actually felt special and unique. My team felt like mine. And in some games, luck is more visible. Take Stardew Valley, for example. It's not the biggest game, but the game's never really been about size. But in terms of potential and possibilities and luck, the game might just seem like one of the biggest games ever. And this is the reason a lot of players get overwhelmed with the amount of stuff you can do and look around that stuff. But for me, that gameplay loop is why I always come back. There are just so many things to do and so many variables around that stuff to do. Take crops, for example. They have different chances of speed they grow, different chances of rain appearing, different fertilization and the quality of the crops. There's even a chance a magical fairy comes out in the night and sprinkles dust over your plant and it immediately shoots up and finishes growing. And that's just crops. We've not even got into the mining, the making friends with the villagers, animals, fishing. If you've ever played Stardew Valley, you might start off your day with a specific task to complete, but it never ends up being that simple. You always end up with 50 new tasks, as you never know whether you might get lucky or unlucky. Your day cannot really be predetermined, but that's what makes the game special. You're going to be opening way more doors than you ever intended to do, and that's cool. But what happens when luck comes in favor and is in your hands? I think one of the great examples of that is Pokemon. For the most part, Pokemon games are pretty linear, in the immediate sense at least, than the path you take towards each gym leader. But it's only when you get into battling where you just seemingly have endless choice and endless possibilities. For example, you may have moves that are more powerful than others, but have a lower chance of landing the actual hit. So you may go for that move, miss it, lose the battle, and therefore need to grind, go search somewhere new and train your Pokemon, but oh wait, you've just found a new item. That item can be used to evolve one of your Pokemon, and now suddenly you have a new Pokemon on your team that's way more powerful, and all because you missed a move. The point being that you choosing to click that move with the lower accuracy has completely changed your gameplay, and for the better. Again, when luck goes wrong, it doesn't really mean much in video games. Right or wrong, you're gonna have a fun time. It's this cool mix of choice the player has and luck that creates change. But what happens when you refuse to miss that move, when you want to take luck into your own hands? Like I said, in video games, there's no real devastation when luck doesn't go your way. You can always catch up to where you were. All it takes is a little bit of determination. And I love the phrase, you create your own luck, because this is definitely most prominent in video games. And this is where huge communities are actually built on refusing to lose and also having a lot of patience. I'm of course talking about shiny hunting. On face value, shiny hunting doesn't really make a lot of sense. You spend hours, weeks, maybe even months hunting for a slightly different color variation of a Pokemon you already have, just for that to affect the game. Quite literally not at all. But that's the beauty of manipulating your luck in video games, again something you can't do in real life. People have created whole communities and events based on this premise. Sometimes all that matters is the ability to roll that dice as many times until you get what you want. And if it wasn't for RNG, these whole communities wouldn't even exist. But sometimes in video games, it's not all about rolling the dice, but manipulating it. You see, in some games, RNG manipulation is extremely important in speedrunning. Remember when I said RNG can technically sometimes be pseudo-random generation? That's because sometimes that generation isn't actually completely random, but just based on something else in the game that is far enough removed to seem random. Sometimes digging into a video game's code can reveal how this generation is formed, and once you have that knowledge, you can then manipulate this so-called luck by changing your specific playstyle. For example, in the game Link's Awakening DX, essential things that are really important to the player, like mob drops and boss patterns, aren't actually as random as they seem. Specific actions that may seem obscure, like messing around in a menu or a text box, can manipulate how RNG is chosen and make the speedrunner's life a whole lot easier. Now I've got to come clean, because to be honest, I've gotten addicted addiction. It's called balatro, and I'm pretty sure right now I have at least 500 hours in the game, and it does what all of the games I've talked about don't, and that is tell you your exact odds of your luck. Remember, I described RNG as paths but that are hidden, but balatro says no and straight up tells you exactly what you're getting into. And sometimes I think hiding that luck can be more exciting and essential. For example, finding a shiny Pokémon feels so much more special when you didn't really know exactly when you were gonna get it, but balatro in showing you the odds up front makes the game a whole lot better in my opinion. There's just no better feeling of getting $20 on that lucky card when you knew the odds were pretty low. Maybe that's why I have a problem. Speaking of not being able to put it down, let's talk about gambling. Fun fact, balatro doesn't contain gambling, but I'm pretty sure people just assumed there was in the game, so the owner had to fight to get the game not age restricted. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, gambling. We're going to turn up the visible look a bit here, because now we're going to talk about a niche of games that I like to call games within games, or GWG for short. GWG refers to a game that contains another game that is completely different and separate from the original game. Most people call these mini-games, but I much prefer GWG. Anyway, these games, for whatever reason, they just always seem to go back to gambling. Think of the Game Corner in Pokémon, the Blackjack in Stardew Valley, or the slot machines in GTA. I have a huge soft spot for these games within games, and what I love about them most is, for the most part, they're just based on real life, very basic playing games everybody knows, and there's no real incentive to play these games inside of a video game, but doing so just seems special. I remember as a kid hopping onto Super Mario Bros. For the DS every day, not to play a platformer, no, to gamble as a child. And sometimes these games within games get so popular they either inspire or themselves transform into games of their own. In Witcher 3 you can play a GWG called Gwent. This is sounding really weird now. But anyway, Gwent was a game within Witcher 3 that became so popular it is now a standalone game of its own. Sometimes I really think luck just makes video games what they are, and you have the ability to, again, roll the dice as many times as you want and make luck your own, or torture yourself in shiny hunting, full odds, because you're not a pussy. But sometimes luck just evens out the playing field a little. I talked about Pokemon before and how luck is most prominent in battling, and this couldn't be more true in multiplayer battling. Sometimes it's nice to land that critical hit or move even if you didn't earn it, or just to spice things up, make things a little more interesting. It always makes big tournaments more nail-biting when you never really know when the next critical hit or luck-inspired RNG is gonna hit and completely change the outcome of the battle. I think part of what makes that special is to power up the underdog, and so when you pair that underdog with a professional, the underdog can still win, and sometimes that's quite nice. I'm gonna be honest here, I'm not sure how to end this video, so I'm just going to sum up my whole thoughts on luck with the following statement. I'm not much of a sporty person, but I would be much more inclined to play football if there was a small chance of a star appearing on the field, and when I grabbed it, I became extremely fast and invincible. I think you get my point. Oh, and good luck.